At this time, I'm pleased to welcome to the stage Dr. Ron Newcomb with Chattahoochee Technical College to give our sponsor remarks.
Good morning. And it is a beautiful morning. Talking about the moon, that harvest moon in the west, well, it was in the east at 11:45 when it was coming through the window and woke me up. And then somehow at 3:45 I was wide awake. So I can relate to what Denise was asking about folks getting, but it was beautiful, wasn't it? We could get rid of the clouds in the east, we could have a moon set in the west and a sunrise in the east at the same time. That's a pretty good trick, isn't it? Folks, it's my pleasure to be with you here today to give sponsor remarks and very shortly to introduce the speaker. We have with us today several members of my board of directors and my board of trustees for the foundation. I see Matt Ledford back there. Matt, stand up and let everybody say hello. Jerry McDuvall, where are you, Jerry? And Debbie Underkoffer, the chair of the board of directors. And then Max Kaler, where are you, Max? Right here on the board of trustees. Thank you all for being with us today. These are volunteers for on the board. We also have quite a few faculty and staff here today. Will the staff and the faculty that are here today, y'all stand up. Come on, don't be shy. I'm going to give sponsor remarks and that I hope aren't the usual in this sense. Normally we'd be up here talking about, oh gosh, here's the things about Chattahoochee Tech you need to know, but you've got this material, and I think that you know about it. Instead, what I'm going to do in my sponsor remarks this morning is going to make a couple of announcements. Here's the two themes this morning in my sponsor remarks. First, back when all the colleges merged, we talked about one college, multiple campuses. One college, multiple campuses. Well, guess what we gave a lot of emphasis to? The one college piece of that. Well, I'm announcing today that we are shifting our focus to the multiple communities. We're going to re-engage with our communities, and Pickens is the first one in which we're going to model something, two new entities. Announcing this morning the formation here in Pickens of a community engagement team. Now that's going to be made up of faculty and staff here at the college that not only work here, but live in Pickens. And because of that, they have authentic daily relationships with each of you and other members of the community. That is, you see them at schools, you bump into them at the grocery stores, you see them at Friday night football games, you worship on Sundays with them, you know each other. And the purpose of the community engagement team, which is going to be headed by David Simmons. David, stand up. Everybody, come on. Everybody knows David. David is the vice president for facilities across the entire college's operations. He's thrilled with that. It's how many 100,000 square feet and take care of facilities. The new projects, the renovation projects, the public safety component. In addition to that, though, he's kind of the unofficial head of this campus here, but he's now the community liaison between the college and y'all, and he's going to head up this community engagement team. And he's going to come up with specific strategies by which this team looks at the community and says, all right, here's the person at this campus that's responsible for engaging with this group. And we're going to make sure this person's engaged in this club. And this is the person that goes to the high school, and this is the person that goes to the middle school, and make sure we've got a comprehensive engagement plan. The second thing that I'm announcing this morning to rekindle that community networking is a President's Community Ad Hoc Advisory Council. Those are people that, key community leaders, business leaders, education leaders, that I'm going to ask to meet with me several times a year and help me be attuned to the things that we can do more of here at the college. I've already spoken with Dr. Perry. Where are you, Dr. Perry? And we're already talking the lingo about how we've got to have more high school students here, right? And we're going to have a plan for doing that. But that's the second way in which we want to re-engage. Now, the second thing that I want to talk about this morning is, as business people, you know that to compete with other businesses, you know, as a county to compete with another county, as a state to compete with other states, and as a nation to compete with other nations, we have to have the kind of workforce that can get it done. We all believe in Adam Smith capitalism. That is, you make money by having a good or service that you sell to somebody else, and in the process, everybody wins. But to produce that good or service, you've got to have the skilled workforce necessary to do that. Of course, that's what Chattahoochee Tech is all about. But when there are shortages in areas, we've got to get students to want to go into that. That's one of the great educational challenges, that is, for us and for y'all, is to encourage people to come to us to get into the areas where they're most needed. One extra tool that we now have in our arsenal, in order to, our toolbox to be able to do that, is the Hope Scholarship and the Hope Grant. Well, first of all, y'all hear about the Hope Scholarship all the time. That if you've got a certain grade point average, you can go into a degree program with the technical college system, with the university system of Georgia, you get the Hope Scholarship. But there's the Hope Grant as well. We don't talk about that enough. The Hope Grant is if you're going into a workforce program at the certificate or the diploma level. And let me give you a quick illustration of the difference. The certificate programs are shorter, then you have a longer diploma program, and then a longer 2-year college degree program, Associate of Applied Science. But the degree is $6. When it comes to certificate and diploma, that we're talking about the Hope Grant. Well, thanks to the leadership of the governor and the General Assembly, folks, the Hope Grant more than ever is there to help students come to take our workforce programs. Our tuition, to begin with, is, say to compare it to KSU, our tuition is half that of KSU, and our fees are a quarter of that of KSU. You can come to us and go into all kinds of health programs, all kinds of business and technical programs, all kinds of core that you can take, either for its own sake or to go on for a 2-year degree with us and go on to a KSU. But first of all, my point is we're affordable. And then you take that cost, for example, for the Hope Grant. And here's the way it works. Let's say you're talking about one of our programs right here that's eligible for a Hope Grant, and nearly everyone is. If I were to announce to you today that on our tuition there's a 73% sale, would that get your attention? And no taxes charged either. 73% sale. Well, that's what the Hope Grant does. The cost of the tuition for the programs, the courses that we offer here in the programs, because of the Hope Grant, for which everyone is eligible, nearly everyone is eligible, there's a 73% of that is paid for by the Hope Grant. What a tremendous discount. And then on top of that, there's even more. What do you do about the rest of it? Well, the governor and the General Assembly have decided that there are strategic industries in which we need to even further incentivize students to come in and take those programs. Again, if we're going to compete, if we're going to have the skilled workforce, we've got to get people to come into them. This is part of incentivizing them by a way to pay for an already low cost. The Workforce Industry Grant, what it does, it pays for the other percent. If you're going into one of 7 program areas, then 80 to 100% of your tuition is paid for. Other than hanging a sign out there that says it's just about free, it's remarkable. And the reason for it is the leadership of the state recognizes that to be competitive, we have got to incentivize the students to go into those areas. I see that welding on the list. By the way, the welding program here is so very strong, and I'm telling you what, I got folks knocking on my door everywhere else saying, I want a welding program here. It's a wonderful asset to have that welding program here in Pickens. Folks, the message is pretty clear that you see in the news where people graduate from college, four-year traditional college, and they get these tens of thousands of dollars worth of debt. You don't need to do that. And you don't need to let your family do that, or your friends do that, or people that work with you do that. You need to let them know about the affordability and all that kind of financial aid. Well, how did this all happen? It just didn't happen by accident. It happened because of the leadership at the state. Well, one of those leaders is our speaker here today. And let me say a few things about his leadership on this. A year ago, I was watching a video of the previous day's session where they were talking about getting the Hope Grant GPA back to where it originally was. The story behind that is money in the lottery. Originally it was 2.0 for Hope Grant. Higher for the scholarship. The grant's not a scholarship. But it got raised because money got tight. A couple of years of lessons learned where it didn't need to be where it was. It was having too much of a negative impact on enrollment. So the General Assembly said, let's get it back to where it was intended to be all along. Well, that was a pretty significant bill. Pretty significant bill. As I watched that video a year ago, here's what happened the day it was considered in the House. The Speaker recognized Christian Coomer, one of the governor's floor leaders, to come up for the purpose of discussing a bill. And the bill was to restore the Hope Grant to where it needed to be. And people in the House, the representatives, as Rick and I were talking about a little earlier, and thank you for being here, of course you would be today, Rick. You got 180 strong personalities. And occasionally the Speaker has to bang the gavel kind of hard and say, ladies and gentlemen, take your seats and quit talking. In this case, he banged it very hard and said, ladies and gentlemen, this is one of the most important pieces of legislation you're going to consider this entire session, restore the Hope Grant. And if you can't sit down, and I've seen 4 speakers in action, I love your leadership on this, Mr. Speaker. If you can't sit down, in essence, there are the exits. That's leadership. You know, with 180 strong personalities, you got to do that. But it signals the importance of this bill. Well, Christian Coomer, he spoke to the bill, took a question or two, and then the Speaker started to call for the vote, and then Representative Evans got his attention, and very politely, as she does, says, I'd like to speak. He said, of course, I'm sorry, I forgot. And she got up there and spoke to the bill. So he showed a second very classy thing. That is the bipartisanship that was behind that change 2 years ago. I love that kind of leadership about the content, the importance of everybody paying attention as the bill is being considered, and that gentlemanly act of bipartisanship. It's no accident that I emphasize the re-engagement of the community today. Of course, I wanted the Speaker to hear that. It's no accident that I'm emphasizing the Hope Grant today and how much it matters and how affordable it makes it, because his leadership is so key to that. The Speaker was first elected to the Senate in the 1990s. Then he became the Republican nominee for the Attorney General in 1998. In 2002, he elected back to the General Assembly, to the House this time, where he represents Fannin and Gilmer County and a portion of Dawson County. I don't think Representative Jasper's minds a little bit that he puts his arm around Pickens County a pretty good bit as well. Y'all are blessed to have both of them. In 2010, he was elected the 73rd Speaker of the Georgia House of Representatives. He has a wife, Jane, 2 children, Elizabeth and Matt, and it's my distinct pleasure to be able to ask the Speaker of the Georgia House of Representatives, David Ralston, to come up here and update us on the legislation.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Newcomb, for that very kind introduction. You must have been really bored today. You watched a video of our session. But thank you for that. Good morning to all audience. Good to be here. It's good be almost home. I always feel like I am home when I'm here in Pickens County, and we're close and get to see a lot of friends. And thanks to Denise Duncan for what she does with the chamber. And I'm really pleased to be here with my friend Rick Jaspers. Rick and I have been friends for many, many years, and I was thrilled when he made the decision back in 2010 to run for the House of Representatives. And he has become a great, great leader in the General Assembly in a fairly short period of time. And he remains a friend of mine and someone that I turn to, and he needs no help representing Pickens County, I can assure you on that. But thank you, Rick, for your friendship. Thank all of you for what you do and what you contribute here to this community and to our region. I want to talk to you a little bit this morning about how we kind of govern. You know, part of my job is to sort of go out and tell the other part of the story sometimes. I have to tell you that when I turn on the TV and I watch what they're doing in Washington and pick up the paper and read about what they're doing, I can understand people being frustrated because I am, and I can understand people being very disgruntled. I can sort of understand all of the volatility in the political environment. But let me I want to tell you about a government, or the way we try to run a government at the state level, because I don't think that story gets told often enough. I think that we have something going on in Georgia today that I'm very, very proud of and I'm excited about, and you saw some indication of that on the video and heard Dr. Newcomb talk about that. You know, what we do, we start with some fundamental principles, and one of those is spending your money, because it is your money, wisely, doing more with less, and taking advantage of some real strengths that I think we have here in Georgia. You know, I hear these people get up and give speeches about, well, why can't we cut spending? And why can't we cut taxes? And why can't we make government smaller? Well, let me tell you something. We have. In current dollars, your government here in Georgia is spending 15% per capita less than we did 10 years ago. In the last 5 years, we have cut almost 13,000 public employees here in Georgia, a reduction of over 16%. And when Rick and I, when I became Speaker in 2010 and he came to the General Assembly, our revenue shortfall account, or what we call our rainy day fund, the money we keep back for hard times, was just about empty. We had enough, I think, when I became Speaker to operate the state for 3 days. We have now bumped that back up to over $700 million, with the goal being to get us back to being able to operate the state for 30 days, and we're getting very, very close. And we do something every year in Atlanta that they haven't been able to do in Washington in years and years and years and years. We pass a balanced budget. We do it, well, thank you. We've done it without raising taxes, and we also do it in 40 days or less every single year. I don't know what their issue is, but it's not easy and it's not always popular. I tell people the story. When I became Speaker in 2010, it was sort of at the depth of the economic downturn, and we had to cut. And remember what I said earlier about the political activists that talk about why don't you cut spending. One session, 2010, we cut the state budget over 20%. Over 20%, that's one out of every $5 that we spend here in the state that we cut out of the budget that year. We cut everything because it was my view that in a time when unemployment was running a little past 10% here in the state, and times were as tough as they were, that the last thing that we ought to do is say, you know what, we can't make the tough choices. So we need you to send us some more money so that we don't have to make those choices. But we made those and we got through that time, and we ended up with a smaller, more streamlined state government. And now, of all the 50 states, we are number 49, almost at the top, or the bottom. You want to be at the bottom, in how much money per capita we ask our citizens to send to us. And one of the things that I'm very proud of is that we have managed through this time and we have retained something very significant, and that is a AAA bond rating by the bond markets on Wall Street. Why is that important? Well, that's important because when we put back bond money to deepen the Savannah River Harbor, we pay almost zero interest because we get the favored treatment up there on any of our capital projects that we bond. And now we're one of only 8 states out of 50 that still have a AAA bond rating, and I think Georgians can be very proud of that. The most important thing that we do every year, as I said, is do the budget. It was kind of different last year that we actually added a little bit to the budget because of revenue improvement here in the state. We have a $20.8 billion budget. We were able to put money back in last year to meet some expanded healthcare needs here in the state due to population growth and still dealing with some of the fallout from the economic downturn. But we were also able to put back money into education. Over $900 million back into the education budget, and I think that was very, very significant because I really believe that education is an investment in our future, and I want to talk a little bit more about that in a moment. But we have some strengths here in Georgia that I think we are building on and utilizing very, very well. This state is a good state in which to do business. That's just plain reality. Through tax reform and regulatory reform that we've enacted over the past few years, some of the people who keep up with these things now rate our business climate. We were rated last fall by one of the top journals used by economic developers and business executives as having the #1 business climate in the entire country. That's important because that means that not only are we in a position to attract new business and new job opportunities, but for those of you that are already here, it gives you assurance that the conditions are favorable for you to maintain employment. We've been named the #1 competitive state in the nation, and I think that's something we can take a lot of pride of, but we can't sit still. We cannot sit still. Let me talk a little bit about the importance, I think, of technical colleges and how it relates to economic development. I want to tell you, first of all, that as long as I'm in this position, that I'm going to continue to advocate and promote a strong pro-growth, pro-job creation economic policy that will help keep Georgia #1 in the nation in terms of jobs and economic development. Part of the reason for our success is that we do truly have a world-class system of higher education. in our colleges, universities, and our technical colleges. I really believe, and I base this on talking to executives, whether they're from China or Korea or Belgium, that when they visit Georgia about locating new facilities here, I like to ask them what was really most important in your decision to come here, because they could go, we compete with all the other states, and we can particularly compete with states like Alabama, Tennessee, North Carolina, and Virginia. And somewhere it may be one or it may be two, but they always mention you have the finest technical colleges that we have seen in the United States of America here in Georgia. The Quick Start program has become a national model in economic development for being able to provide a job force that's ready to go to work on day one when a new employer locates here in Georgia. I'm pleased to see that 97% of our TCSG students get a job upon graduation, which helps these Georgians become an important part of our workforce. I give a lot of credit to Governor Deal and his leadership on this issue, and I applaud his creation this year of the Governor's High Demand Career Initiative, which brings together and really makes a team out of our economic development leadership here in the state and our leadership in our universities and technical colleges and key leaders in the private industry. By bringing all of these people to the table, we don't have to sort of compartmentalize what we're doing, because everybody's going to be on the same page. So I think that it's important that we continue to make a priority out of education, and particularly out of technical education as we go forward. Another part of that, he owed me that bottle of water. He got me up here this early this morning. Another part of what we try to do to promote economic growth here in Georgia is tax reform. I want to talk to you a little bit about that, because I think that's been something that we can take a lot of pride in. When I was in office that first year in 2010, anybody else got it? I appreciate that. During that first session, when I came in, and the morning after I was elected speaker in December of 2009, they told me, congratulations, and oh, by the way, we're starting session in 3 weeks, and oh, by the way, we're looking at the largest budget shortfall in Georgia history since the Great Depression. And I thought, I think I'm going to go back to Blue Ridge. And it was a difficult winter, because every month, January, February, coming out of December, we sat there and watched the revenue numbers drop every month. And that was the year that we had to cut the 20% out of the state budget, and had to cut everywhere. So it was a bleak time. But out of that, it seemed to me that we always ought to use challenges as opportunities to do new things. So we created a tax reform council and charged them with making or bringing back some ideas for tax reform here in Georgia that would make us the most competitive state in the nation. And they did. They brought back some very, very bold ideas by the next legislative session. And it took us a year or two to get them all passed, or get most of them passed. But we did some things in that, like phasing out the marriage tax penalty. We did that by eliminating the birthday tax on motor vehicles. And we did that, and this is really one of the more interesting parts of that, we eliminated the sales tax used on energy inputs into manufacturing, which had a huge impact on stimulating economic development here in Georgia. We were in the process that winter in 2012 of negotiating with two big employers, or two big job economic development prospects. And we had to basically promise them that we would pass that session for them to come to Georgia. But we did, and they did. And one of them, and this is, I think, is a story I love telling. The Caterpillar company had taken offshore to Japan many, many years ago one of their larger manufacturing facilities. They brought that back, and they brought it back to Georgia, and they're now about to open up a new facility in Clark and Oconee County that will put, I think, about 1,400 or 1,500 Georgians to work in high-paying jobs. One of the other things that came out of that was a tax incentive for another industry that's having, I think, a huge impact here in the state, and one that I would never dream that we would be competitive in. But you know who is number 2 in the nation now in movie production? Georgia. Georgia. You can't drive around Atlanta. You can't drive around Atlanta anymore without seeing those trucks. Those jobs, we've even let them borrow the Capitol a few weeks ago. And they put a bar in the rotunda down there to film some movie. We charged them for it, by the way. You got the benefit of that. But but it's not about the movie stars and the glitter. It's about the ramifications of their work here in the state. It is significant. I was talking to the manager of the Home Depot in Fayetteville a year or so ago. He told me, because a lot of the studios are located on the south side down there, that 30% of his gross revenue every year comes out of the movie industry. It is putting Georgians to work. Putting Georgians to work. And we put another piece into that puzzle, if you want to talk about what education means. We put one more piece into that puzzle this year, because some of the people in the industry have been telling me and others, you know, the problem is you don't have people trained here in Georgia in what we need. So we fixed that. We put a campus down in Fayette County that's going to open in a few months. We funded it in the budget this year. That's actually located on a movie studio that's going to be training in all of the things that they need. And so we're going to have Georgia kids going to school there and getting the training they need, so they don't have to bring people from California and New York here to do those jobs anymore. So here's the bottom line. I told you that we had cut almost 13,000 public employees off the state payroll in 5 years. The other side of that coin is through these efforts that we've been working on, through our technical college initiatives, and through tax reform and regulatory reform. We are now nearing almost 300,000 new private sector jobs in the past 4 years. We've got other things on the horizon that I'm excited about. We have finally cleared all the barriers and all the hurdles to complete what I believe will be the largest economic development project in generations in this state, and likely for generations to come. And that is deepening the Savannah River Harbor so that we can accommodate the big Panamax vessels that will be coming through the Panama Canal in another year and a half. Let me tell you something. You cannot imagine, in my view, the number of jobs that are going to be created. And I'm not talking about in Savannah or southeast Georgia. You know, I looked up back a few months ago in my house district, Gilbert, Fannin, and part of Dawson County, already there's like 1,800 jobs attributable to the port as it is now. I talk to people that are excited that now there's going to be even better and bigger ways of shipping processed poultry overseas, apples overseas, all of the products that we produce up here. This is going to be huge for the entire state. And I am very excited about that, and I'm looking forward that when we go down this fall sometime to put the shovel in the river and get that project going so that we have the largest and busiest port on the eastern seaboard. I want to thank all of you for being here today, and I want to thank you for being involved in your community. I think it's in the time that we're living in, there's plenty of negativity out there. There's plenty of unpleasantness in the public square. So I think it's important, I think it's vital that people that have an optimistic, positive vision of the future of this community and this part of the state and all of Georgia be involved. So I want to thank you for doing that, and I want to thank you for letting me spend a few minutes with you. Thank you very much. May God bless each of you, and may God continue to bless the state of Georgia. Thank you. They asked me to take a few questions, and I'm happy to. I have a simple rule about questions. You can ask me anything you want to, I just don't have to answer it. Anybody got any questions? Yes, ma'am.
I'm new here, so forgive my ignorance. Why would you ship chickens overseas?
Well, you can go ask a poultry farmer. So they make money. The poultry market, exports of poultry have just been incredible over the last few years, whether it's to Mexico or South America. I understand that the Far East now is becoming a big market for our poultry.
So they don't come back, they just go and stay there.
No, we don't. Yeah, they just go and stay there.
It's starting to worry.
No, that's a one-way ticket for the chicken.
I'm a local travel agent in the area. When the port of Savannah is finished, hopefully you'll be bringing in some of the cruise ships as well.
I've been reading and talking to people about the commercial kind of things. I wouldn't see any reason why not, because the harbor is going to be will be the deepest, I think, on the East Coast. Then I wouldn't know of any reason why they wouldn't. I think that'd be great. Well, don't even go to Florida and get on a cruise ship anymore.
Fantastic.
Yeah. I'll look into that. Thank you for bringing that up.